Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Aki number 2, and in this video I want to take a look at Castra Trafudi talking with WTF Moses, Golden Boy and Doa about the First Strike tournament. I cannot believe that I missed this a few days ago. Checked over Valorant Twitter to see if I missed anything, and of course this is what I missed, so I'm probably going to make a video about this as well on Valorant Hub. But anyway, let's jump straight into it. I think it's probably going to be roughly around 15-20 minutes of conversation, so let's jump right into it. This is the Do Not Peak podcast, by the way, from what I understand.
The announcement video that came out today.
Oh, sorry, the Valoranting podcast. That's my bad. Valoranting.
Fruity. Once again, the
the Valoranting podcast by Do Not Peak Entertainment. That's this.
Strategy lead, and he is sans his enormous whiteboard. Casper, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me back.
So first of all, the last time we spoke was regarding the Ignition series and all the different implications that would have early on in the Riot Esports ecosystem. So I guess my first question, the softball, what were some of your takeaways from the Ignition series? What did you guys love? What did you hate? Is there anything that you kind of took away that you applied directly to First Strike?
Yeah, I think one of the things we were looking closely at is form.
Yo, Riot, I don't mean to like be nasty, or not even nasty. It might be a smart idea to give like the people who are constantly on camera, because I've seen multiple interviews now with Castra, multiple interviews with Trevor Rumleski, Morello, and plenty of other Riot devs. Anna Donlan already has the Blue Yeti from what I've seen in her videos or from her interviews. But it would be really good to invest in, a $100, $200 mic for these guys. Just because, yeah, if they're going to be doing interviews a lot, then it'd be really good.
We saw a format actually have a big impact both on players and the fan experience. I think from a player's perspective, we saw a lot of qualifiers have best of fives, and we saw players get pushed to their limit as they're playing like 16-hour days. So one of the big learnings we have from there is reserving best of fives in those long matches for the highest levels of play, and ensuring that as players go through those qualifiers that they're not playing too much and they're not getting burned out. So that's something that we're prioritizing. I think from an actual broadcast format, we saw some events have qualifiers, some have invitations. We saw the value of invitations bringing in those big names. But at the end of the day, I think having that aspirational path that anyone can compete, fight through those online qualifiers, get to the top, that's something we really liked, and we applied to First Strike as well.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the main things that we often talked about on broadcast, or at least on this show, was the parity between competition and like what do you take away from one competition that was invite based versus qualified based, the amount of teams, the amount of times they had to play, the amount of rounds in the qualifiers versus the tournament form, like having that unified factor or unified structure for the tournaments. Is something that we just need. So I'm glad to hear that was something that Riot looked at and saw the opportunities with as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the regions, because we were having a discussion just before the show started about the perception of the major versus minor regions, specifically Europe, Latin America, North America, and Korea. I'm going to start with the Korea discussion, because we know Europe and North America have been driving a lot of viewership. Latin America is coming up as well. It's a very geographically large region, so of course it is a major region. And Korea, so this was a question mark for me specifically, compared to say like Japan or Russia, and in some cases Turkey having the same amount of driving force between them, same interest. But focusing on specifically Korea and Japan, what was the differentiating factor between those two regions, where Korea has been sometimes perceived to be a little bit behind in their development as far as the Valorant esports scene is concerned? And is that a accurate summation of what's happening with the regions right now?
I think one of the big deciding factors for Korea is just the esports market in general. I would say it's probably one of the most mature markets in the world. Commonly having esports on TV, so it's an area that we know we have a lot of growth opportunity in. And I think we just have a lot of room to grow, both for esports and for the game itself. And it's an area that we want to focus on over the next few years.
Okay.
Is there a
so I'm going to
I
was going to say I'll open up to Golden
sorry.
Boy here, and you can go ahead, Golden Boy.
But what is the difference between a major and a minor region? Because I've been watching a lot of the Japanese events and their development as a as a scene has actually been pretty impressive to watch. Absolute Jupiter is like crushing, and they're
Yeah.
like the G2 of Japan right now. They're very good. Um, I'm curious on the differences between the major and the minor. Like, could it be viewed
As per usual, if you want to watch this full thing without me talking, a link will be in the description. It won't be as easy because this is on Twitch, not YouTube, so I'm having to look through the VOD. But what was I going to say? I can't remember. If I can remember, I paused the video for a
as a
reason, but I can't remember
negative
why.
if
Oh
you
yeah,
are
that's it. I haven't. I simply haven't. I do. I don't feel bad about it, but I think it's something that I need to improve on. Is looking at what is happening in Valorant for the rest of the world apart from NA. I've been so focused on NA, and other parts of the world are super important when it comes to Valorant. Especially when it comes to viewership. A lot of you, someone actually said in one of the comments on Valorant Hub, I hope that Valorant gets big in Asia. It already is. It really is. Based on the analytics that I'm looking at, both on my YouTube channel and on Google Trends itself, it's dominating in Asia. Well, I wouldn't say dominating, but it's doing really like it's United States is like maybe 12th biggest country or like 10th biggest country when it comes to Valorant, which I wasn't expecting. But yeah, no, other places in Asia are really killing it right now, and same with Europe, obviously
in
too.
that minor region, like, or and what would your, I guess, words be to any of our international listeners? Potentially this could get translated, that are watching this and maybe wondering, why am I a minor, why is my region a minor region? uh your thoughts.
Yeah. I want to start by talking about Japan because Japan has shocked us all. I think FPS generally isn't big there. PC games aren't big. Japan has
Yeah.
exploded, and we've been really excited to see that, and we
That's
want to
that's so
make
cool
that
to
a big
hear.
region as well. Um, but overall, I think for when it comes to First Strike, there isn't a big difference in major and minor. I think the reason that there is a delineation is because at the end of the day, there's only so many hours in a day, and we do have to broadcast all of these in one weekend. There are a number of regions that we said, hey, these should not overlap each other or should have minimal overlap so that our fans can kind of tune in and watch them.
Buy the latest iPhone from Vodafone.
It really do be like that, huh? 30 seconds, well, bro. At least on YouTube, you can skip the ad after a few seconds, but nope, on Twitch, it really do be like this. And of course, I am not saying I don't want to support DN Peak Entertainment. They're doing a great job, and I'm actually happy to watch the ad if it's going to support them. I'm just talking about Twitch versus YouTube with these ad breaks, man. YouTube be a little better potentially when it comes to being able to skip them at least. But anyway,
Regions we chose to essentially not have that. But when it comes to branding, when it comes to participation, unfortunately, First Strike doesn't ladder up to a global competition anyway, so there isn't much difference. And down the line, I think when there is global competition, every region around the world will have a chance to go into that and prove that they are the best. They have the best team in Valorant.
Okay.
Eric?
Cool. Well, all right. So I've got a question for you on the TO side of things, and this might be a little bit tougher of a question, but I think it's one a lot of people are curious about. One of the big initiatives, it seems like, with Valorant Esports is to really involve a lot of the third-party TOs, organizations, endemic esports talent, as the cliche name goes. And in the video, Waylon did mention that working with those people was core to creating an authentic Valorant Esports experience. So my question for you is, going forward, what is the involvement going to look like between Riot and other organizations that want to make Valorant events? And the reason why this is a really important question is because if we look at First Strike, we're all very excited about it. It's going to be really fun to watch. These other organizations, third-party organizations, are going to be doing qualifiers essentially, which I would imagine involves, paying Riot a license fee and then essentially running an event that advertises for a bigger event that these TOs will not be doing, which is not really a viable broadcast plan for a company like this. So how do you keep these third-party companies involved in the scene if they won't have some of the biggest Valorant events out there? Because qualifiers aren't going to cut
that's a
it.
good question.
So I'm curious about what your plan is going forward with that.
Sure.
There's a lot
I
to
think
unpack there.
yeah. I think speaking just broadly about third parties and how we kind of think about them, um, we're excited to work with them. We think there is an ecosystem that can involve third parties, but in a controlled way where there isn't cannibalization. I don't think everything has to be totally produced by Riot. For First Strike, we are leaning into these third-party events that are qualifiers. Some of them will look like Ignition Series events where you have these, and a qualifier that's broadcast really well produced. And then First Strike is something that we wanted to lean in and show what Valorant esports can look like as a Riot produced esport as well, because we've been watching these events and thinking about how we can really make an awesome experience for our fans. I think in the future we are thinking about how do we involve third parties in a way that's meaningful. But to be blunt as well on this, I think Riot as a company has more flexibility to invest in these events and create these big experiences for our fans. Where I think some TOs are a little bit more focused on profitability and creating an event that I think is good for their business. So I think I'm excited to come through this as Riot and invest in these events in the future as well, while finding a way to include third parties in a meaningful way.
Sure, that sounds
So
great. I
looking,
think the major concern I would have with that is when you look at other games in the past, and I'm not just targeting Riot with this. A lot of developers, I think, are
I'm
guilty of
glad
this in the
that
past as
I'm
well.
glad that Doa is pushing this point a bit, because no hate at all to Castra, no hate at all. I think he's doing an amazing job. Like, let's just put that out now. But that was sort of it felt like a political non-answer to a certain extent, because essentially what we're talking about here is how are we going to make it continuously feasible for third parties to run in Valorant if it's going to be hit and miss as to where their chances and opportunities are.
When you take things too fully in-house with an esport, it really prevents a lot of new faces from coming up in the scene, whether that's, to a certain extent players, but also personalities, other broadcasters, things like that.
Yeah.
So what's your plan to make sure that there's enough opportunities out there so that good talent is able to come up? Because if we look at other
Mm.
games, other esports, there's been a bit of a drought in terms of new broadcast talent coming up, specifically through these more grassroots sort of events.
Yeah. So I think, working with third parties helps a lot with that, because generally they each have a different set of people they work with, and that allows different avenues for talent to come up. Something we can do as third parties have events is put more of a global spotlight on them and ensure that they get the best exposure possible. And
Like
then from the
promotion through the
Riot
client and things like that, or
promotion, I think we saw with the Ignition series, we had promotion through our social channels. We actually hosted these events on
sure.
our main Valorant channel and rated.
Gotta say, really hope they start doing more promotions through any promotions, I should say, through the client. Really hope they start doing that at some point.
I think we want
Really
to
hope they do.
continue doing that and finding other ways to promote it. Right now,
We've seen it with
isn't
Blizzard
present in the
already,
client itself,
so
but I think as we think about what that looks like in the future, we do want to make sure that our fans can experience Valorant esports in the best way possible. And if third parties are part of that, we want them to be part of the fan experience. But
I'm
ultimately,
interested.
from a Riot perspective, sorry, on the talent side, from a Riot side, we're also looking at everyone out there. We're not trying to, just use our current Riot talent or people that are endemic. We're trying to um, essentially find the people that are best at Valorant, and we're always watching different events out there, whether it's qualifiers that frankly give more opportunity for um, newer talent to host stuff, or it's those bigger events that end up having usually the well-known names.
Okay. Do you think Riot would ever hire talent to be in-house talent like they do with League of Legends or something like that, or would you prefer to keep it more freelance and spread out?
That's a fairly technical question. I don't know.
Oh dear. I mean, that was a curveball question though, because we're talking to three people right here who are basically, as far as I'm aware at least, going to be freelance. Like,
Answer to, because I think there's a difference. But at the end of the day, like at a high level, Riot would want to look at having the best talent possible hosting the biggest events.
that was a difficult
I don't know
question.
whether they're a freelancer or in-house.
Someone write him in the comments. They were fishing for a job, because I mean, those who can see it, who can see it. Those who can't, that's
This is like
okay.
a pretty technical question that I think there's a talent team at Riot that would be working on that.
Well, your boy
I
wants
said
to
it was
stay
I
freelance.
said it was a
So
tougher
hook me up.
question.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Oh
We
dear.
all have commitment issues, I guess. So as far as the the balance, this is a question more for me than anything else, but you mentioned briefly that right now there's at least no immediate plans to have an integration of esports into the client. And I'm wondering, is there a not an issue, but is there a struggle, battle, conversation, whatever you want to call it, between the esports side of Valorant as a pilot project and the greater game landscape? And where do those things eventually intersect in your mind?
You know, funny enough, I think in most other games in the industry, there is generally a struggle between esports and game, and I think that's pretty well understood. What's really refreshing with Valorant is there isn't at all. The game team comes to us and says, "What can we do? How do we make this experience even bigger and better?" So the reason we don't have in-client support right now isn't because we don't want to. It's because we're trying to imagine what would the best experience possible look like, and how do we build towards that. And we want to do things that haven't been done before. Both us and the game team are at the table together brainstorming of like, if you're an esports fan and you play Valorant, what is the most fun, best experience you can have playing the game and watching the esport, and how do we connect those two as much as possible?
Okay. And I suppose we would be remiss not to ask some of the format questions as well, since we did touch on that earlier. Is there anything you can reveal to us on the format side? What would some of the potential players be looking forward to in, we'll use it because it's clearly the best region, like in say North America. So as far as just the general kind of format, what can we expect from First Strike?
Sure. I think there will be a separate announcement coming from North America that'll have more details, but I do know that every region, including North America, will have multiple qualifiers that essentially feed teams to these events that then qualify to the first strike event. There'll be multiple qualifiers so that if you get knocked out, you do have another chance to go. And I think the big point here is that every team has to go through qualifiers. There are no invites, no matter whether you're 5 average Joes or you're, let's say, Sentinels. You have to play in our online qualifiers and prove that you're the best team, and then qualify to first strike that way.
Is
And
there
is that gonna be unified
is there
across all
seating?
regions?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be the same across all regions. And Golden Boy,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Not every format will be the same across all regions, but the general idea that every team has to qualify through a system of
Okay.
open qualifiers.
Now, will there be a seeding? Because like obviously G2 has dominated Europe, and I would imagine that they should have something for winning every Ignition series in Europe, right? Like what was the benefit, I guess I'm trying to get out of winning Ignition series events in your respective regions, if not to have some kind of a nod for first strike events? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the exact qualifier format will be released later. I can't speak on behalf of our region, but Ignition Series won't have an effect on anything else in the ecosystem. It was meant to be these standalone events that were run by third parties that we could support. So in that sense, teams weren't acquiring any points. There was no circuit. There was nothing going on. And frankly, I think that's fair because some events were invite only. I think the Blast event only had 4 slots, and no
Yeah.
other team could even compete.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
do think
curious
they got some
about
nice bragging rights.
oh,
But
Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
so I'm curious with the plan going forward. Do you see the overall structure of Valorant esports being more league like, where you have tournaments that lead into where everything points towards a big world championship at the end of the year? Or do you see it more like CS:GO like, where there's a series of majors throughout the year, and those have things that feed into them, but there's no single big defining thing. It's more of a series of big things.
I can't go too much into our 21 and future plans. That's something we're actively working on, and we're trying to do what is, I think, the best experience. We're not. I think what we'll see is a hybrid. I think there are things we like in League of Legends. Like the League World is the biggest esport event in the world, and I think the excitement around that is really awesome. And having that for Valorant would be really awesome in the future as well. But
Let's go.
No warning, Twitch. No warning at all. Like, just a little thing here, like YouTube has ad starting in 5, 4. Nope, none of that. Okay. It's I got quiet for a second there because he started. I think this part of the interview, or the whatever it is, has potentially been one of the most important and interesting parts, where they're talking about the structure of 2021. That's actually what I wanted to hear about. So let's see what he's got to say.
that I think is best for our fans and has the best experience overall, because we do see the importance of those major beats throughout the year as well.
What do you personally like? Do you like everything leading to the big year-end event, or do you like sort of more the majors kind of style? What I'm curious about what your personal preference is with this.
Sure.
What is the mind
So
of
I think
Casper? Let's do that.
Yeah.
I think from my personal, speaking for myself, I think leagues have value because they give teams continuous exposure, and then that allows them to actually make long-term investment in the sport. Like, you can't sign a
Sure.
sponsor and what are you going to sell them? You don't know, because you don't know how much you're going to be, how much matches you're going to be playing the next year. So I do see the value of leagues in that. At the same time, majors are really fun. Bringing teams from around the world together in one area multiple times a year sounds really awesome. And even going through Ignition Series, seeing rivalries form, there's nothing more I want right now than seeing a Final Four with Absolute Jupiter, Vision Striker, G2, and Sentinels. Like that is, if I could fly them all to some remote island and have them play in that, that would be awesome. And I think having more
I pick the
moments like
island.
that throughout the year.
I think we were
Somewhere
talking
in the
about
world,
Fiji last time, were we not?
Yeah.
Were we not
Rhode
talking about?
Island, right?
Was it Fiji or Bermudas? I don't know. Somewhere.
Yeah,
Why don't we go
something
to
like that.
Why don't we go to
Yeah.
UFC Fight Island? Let's go to the Fight Island. Let's go there.
We'll
Yes.
set up a bunch of, we'll have to have like a name for it. Like we'll have like a bunch of tents. We'll have some great music acts. We'll call like maybe we'll be like Ignition Fire or something like that. We'll have to figure it out. But anyway, I do want to reflect a little bit on that last little note that you talked about when it comes to leagues. This actually comes from the chat, this question. So are there plans, or we'll say, is there interest, I should say, for Riot to create a league like ESEA for CSGO with weekly matches for players of all levels? Ignition and First Strike only have large tournaments for the highest level of players, but I was wondering if there were plans for more inclusive
amateurs,
league-style
basically.
competitions.
So
Yeah. I think there's like two parts to that because there's like the pro league and then you have your whole amateur ecosystem, which I think your semi-pro, which is what ESCA is addressing. Overall, we want to create opportunities up and down that entire ecosystem. That takes a while to build. It's not something we can just flip the switch on. And I think it's something that we're going to be developing a lot more in 21. I think open qualifiers in the beginning naturally develop that because any team can compete in that. And then will probably be other smaller tournaments that happen during that. But ultimately, looking at the future, we do want to develop an ecosystem where your semi-pro team could have an ecosystem to play in and could play regularly, and then look at the pro scene as the next level from that.
Okay. We lost your mic, Golden
I
Boy.
think you muted Golden Boy.
how does this happen with him so much?
We'll go to you, Doe. Do you have any other follow-ups?
Let's see. I was thinking of one. As far as the major versus minor regions go, it is really cool to see Japan start to come up on the PC gaming front. That's I think something a lot of us in esports have been looking forward to for a long time. So that'll be something that'll hope to develop. But I for the record, I'm totally on board with including Korea in the major right now. Even if Japan may look like the stronger region in the game, I think it's wise to include Korea just because of their esports history. Their infrastructure is much better. And stylistically, I've always said I think Valorant is a game that should play very well to that scene. And I feel like it's only a matter of time penetrating the internet cafe culture where most gamers game in Korea is a little bit tricky sometimes. And Valorant, with things like their anti-cheat software, I'm sure is a huge like rat's nest of issues with the software and the internet cafes that exists over there and all that kind of thing. Not that it's filled with cheating software, but there's a lot of interesting software, shall we say, that enables people to play many different games on these computers and these internet cafes. And I can see how that would run into trouble with Valorant. But I do think it's a good idea to include that in a region. I am curious too with that. Is there a big effort right now to involve some of those television broadcasters? You mentioned TV earlier. OGN would be the big one, obviously, a company that I worked with for a number of years, who we know can produce really good stuff. But have there been talks to include like an OGN or possibly a different TV broadcaster over there for Valorant events?
Yeah, I think we've been talking to TV, different broadcast companies, frankly, around the world, and making sure that our content can be as accessible as possible. There's no reason that's holding us back from being on TV.
Okay.
Golden Boy, you're back with us?
There's no set plans I can
Yes, there's
share, but that's something that I know our regional teams are working on for sure.
Cool.
So I'm interested to know when it comes to the I guess the development of Valorant, because we have this the ever present balancing and addition of new content. Is there plans, and as someone, as you just said, has been talking with the game development team, is the release and cadence of content in Valorant specifically designed to lead into or support things like First Strike?
Yes, I think we're working with them very closely, looking at our calendars together. and saying, hey, we know we have events. How do we merge our calendars and make sure that our events can work closely hand in hand? I think you'll see both ways where like some content might get teased in esports broadcast that isn't live in the game, or the other way where content goes live in the game before an event uh, for that specific event.
So Easter
Um,
eggs,
I think
basically.
the first easy thing that we can knock out is ensuring that the game is stable for that event and ensuring that there aren't
Yeah.
any new agents released immediately before the event. We saw that with Killjoy, and I think going forward, as we have a more defined ecosystem, we want to make sure map releases and agent releases are timed so that you don't suddenly get a surprise from the post scene.
By the way, just in case anyone knows, I like know no one's gonna be saying this, but in case anyone wondered why the shocked face, I'm watching this on Twitch right now, and of course on Twitch, on the interface, to the right you see the chat, to the left you see your fellow channels. We have Dr. Lupo out here with over 100,000 people watching live on I think it's a film or something, but wow, over 100,000 people.
Good
Anyway.
strategy.
Can you
Golden
guys
boy.
hear
Third
me
time's
now?
a charm.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we
Can you
can.
hear me?
Welcome back.
Yay. Oh my God. I had so many questions. I wanted to jump in. I was so excited. The technology blocked
Your
me.
hand is up in the
It
back of
blocked
the room
me.
like, teacher, pick me. Yeah.
Listen to me. Okay, so recently you guys released the API for spikes like VLR and Spike to be able to dive into the stats, which has been infinitely helpful for us. Is there any chance that we get in game a kind of follow observer tool or something like that, so that I don't have to cast over vmix anymore, because it seems like we're going to continue to be doing these remote broadcasts for a very long time now. So I'm just curious if there's any tools that that you can maybe kind of tease or discuss about, and also like something that I really enjoy from say like Overwatch League or Call of Duty League is that you have um the baked in, I guess, upper thirds, right? Baked in graphics for like putting in, team here, like just typing it out, like team A here,
Yep.
team A B. Is that something we can also potentially expect down the line? Maybe even giving TOs an opportunity, like in Counter Strike, to customize those things to their
That's
liking?
really interesting that Golden Boy's asking this, because this is the sort of thing that I'm genuinely curious as to how it all works, because I'm not letting in on this stuff. Like I'm not with the team that works on this stuff. I don't work with Golden Boy and stuff. So I don't know exactly how the tournaments, are specifically set up. I know how they can be set up, but I don't know specifically. So to know that it sounds like they really have very little flexibility around how they cast. Of course, Castra, I'm sure, is about to explain what the plan is for that.
Yep. So I can maybe just talk broadly about Observer, and kind of this will be, I think, part of that. Overall, I think Observer has come a long way since the game launched. I was actually watching a tournament from closed beta and just remember that we didn't even have like outlines, we didn't have their health bars. There's like a lot. We also know
There was
there's a
one
lot to
event
do.
we did without player icons. You remember that one when we didn't have player icons? That was a good one.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
remember that one.
In 2020, bro. In
Yeah,
2020.
good time.
We also know that we have a long way to go, and I think there's like a list of features that we know are good that we want to add at some point. Like I think the first one is having more observer slots. We have 2 right now. I think having more than that, having a lot more would help unlock a lot of other features and a lot of other things that we can do with it. Having a control panel for observers to just have more control. We saw some features come through, like having tournament mode as well, and allowing actually server selection so that these online matches can be fair as well. But we want to have more controls. We want to have cinematic cameras so that people can create, I would say, better content as well. We saw some organizers do some crazy stuff with the camera where we'd have to actually ask them, say, hey, how did you do that? Because they don't know how to do that. Since the camera controls are fairly limited.
Oh, was that the
I think-
event where they had the faceplates toggle for every time they switch? I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was a European
There
Every
was,
event.
time it would switch. Yeah.
I remember one example. I think it was the Blast event where they had a camera slowly panning across the map, looking down. And we know that the camera speed, it doesn't go at that speed, so we're trying to figure out how they actually did that.
Bro, I'm sorry, but this is so, and again, nothing against Castro or Riot or anything. It just makes me laugh because, or it makes me smile because this is classic how corporations, a lot of corporations work, where people outside of the corporation they find that they're tweaking stuff, they're playing with stuff, and they find something that the original creator themselves, i.e., Riot with Valorant, didn't even know you can do. It always comes out like this. It always.
I think having
Controller,
stable
maybe?
camera. What was
Could have been a
that?
controller. Could have been a
Yeah,
controller.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think having stable camera positions is big. That's something a lot of other games have, where you can quickly cut to, like, if you're taking a B site, you know exactly what cameras you want to use when the team is coming in.
Yeah.
Um,
Camera presets.
team
Mhm.
team colors is a big one. We know with a game with abilities, you see two sage walls, it's really hard to say who's whose, or you see the smokes come in. We know having that, like, some sort of a ability to tell what the team's part is going to be important. So I think that's something we'll see coming, and ultimately just having that visual clarity come out. And then round reset is another thing we just talked about as well in the video. But essentially, when a match goes wrong, which I haven't seen happen to me times, thankfully, but right now there's no way to restart where you left off. We want.
Oh my gosh! Come on, another 30-second ad. I don't mind it if either give me the option to skip or at least give me a warning, bro. At least give me a warning. 13, 12, 11. So the end of this interview, which I think this will be likely to be close to the end of this interview, I think is going to have the most juicy information. So I think this is what we're looking at the most right now. Let's take a look at what
Sorry,
he
we want
has
to
to
create that
say.
ability to be able to actually restart where you left off, so teams don't have to make the decision of starting from the beginning or continuing the match and having a result that they don't really believe in. On the broadcast UI side, I think that's something that we want to lean a little bit more on the API that actually unlocks anyone who's broadcasting to build their custom HUD, and gives them the data that they need to essentially show, let's say, the buy round, the weapons that both teams are buying, or the money in it. And we do think there's a lot of value in giving that flexibility and allowing both our broadcast team and the community to build what looks best for the experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
In regards to the resets, I just want to note it did happen at the FTW event, where we had to. I think me and Riv had to fill for close to. I think I want to say it was like 10 minutes because we had to reset an entire game. So just want to thank you and make sure pass that note ahead. Thank you. I would have liked it a week ago, but I'll take it now. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes that support shows up just in the nick of time, and sometimes it arrives a week late, like some of my packages do. So as far as the region discussion, there's another question that came out of the chat, actually from one of the pro players from FPX. Angel asks, how will the regions for teams be decided for in the greater context of the FPX having players from multiple regions that are considered major? So Europe, so you are major and minor. So in this case for FPX, it would be Europe and Russia or CIS.
Yep, I think it'll do. Well, once we come out with the tournament rules, there will be requirement. There will be some rules that come out of, like, hey, what defines what region a team is in. There'll be details coming out in October. I think it'll look a lot like League of Legends, which I believe has like 305 players have to be from that region. Now, from the broader question of FPX in general, because FPX, as we know, is a Chinese brand, I think teams will have to start making a decision of like where they want their team based. We've seen some teams pick up in multiple spots. I think Cloud9 has a Korean and an NA team. I think Gen G is also doing the same. And Immortals obviously has MIBR in Brazil as well. So I think that these teams will have to start making decisions of where do they want to be based around the world and where do they want to build that brand.
So you're saying like an organization like Cloud9 would have to pick one of those? They wouldn't be able to run a team in each region independently?
Once we have global competition that ladders up, I think we want to avoid a situation where like you have Cloud9 versus Cloud9 in Worlds, because that's not fun for anyone.
Right. Extremely confusing. So, and that kind of
That's
leads
really
naturally
important
into
or interesting to
a
know, I should
question that I
say.
think a lot of people would extrapolate from the other Riot Esports, specifically League, and that's franchising. Is that still a question for another day? Is that still down the road? Is there movement towards that angle? And what is the current feeling internally when it comes to franchise teams?
It's something we're still exploring of, figuring out what is the best system. Franchising isn't always the answer, but I think there is a need for just some sort of formal team partnership that allows teams to invest. There's not much I can talk to because it's still things we're exploring right now. But ultimately, our major goal in the short term for 21 to have these big global competitions that allow teams to come together.
So it's clearly not off the books then.
All right. And
Okay.
also just
Golden Boy, you have any follow-ups?
did we clarify just for the viewers this event First Strike, no international event, so we will not get G2 Sentinels. Well, if they make it qualifiers, they could get just G2 could lose to, I don't know, party parrots. Who knows if they're even still a thing? But
They're
the
not.
but when I know, right? But when there's always a chance the parrots will rise again. When could we expect that? I mean, you know, we're starting to see more traditional sports leagues operate things in a bubble. I think I'm even
Ooh,
hearing rumblings
Disneyland
that
bubble.
Call of Duty is yeah, Call of Duty's maybe experimenting with the idea of doing a bubble. Um, Overwatch is doing that. I think League of Legends currently are doing that. Is that like something that we could potentially see where we maybe just get like a bubble event or something like that? I'm down to live in a bubble for like a week or 2 weeks. You know what I'm
Same.
saying? Like I'll chill. Just give me a computer so I can play video games, and then beyond that, I'm good. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, First Strike is not an international event. I wish it was. We really want it to be. I think back, if I think like a year ago, when we were just thinking about Valorant Esports, we really wanted to have global competition by now, and it's kind of sad that we're in a situation where we can't. So First Strike will
Yeah.
have to be regional. I think as we look at 21, we're trying to evaluate like what does it mean to when can we have LAN events both in a region, pan-regional, or a global level? Just because each of them I think will be on a different timeline. Frankly, as we know, different regions are on a different curve right now with COVID. So what's going to be possible is going to be different. When we have open qualifiers, I think that bubble gets a lot harder to run because you just have
Oh, of
more uncertainty of
course.
who the teams are that are going into it. And ultimately, I think having a bubble is fairly taxing on players as well. But it's something we're still exploring and trying to figure out. At the end of the day, how do we get the best um, competition for our fans, and how do we get global competition?
I
I
think
think I would
the
love to
approach.
see. Oh, go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead, Eric.
that's fine. I was going to say I think the approach overall of moving slowly is encouraging with Valorant. You know, we've in the industry we've seen other instances of companies trying to move too quickly in terms of getting their esport to be this big global phenomenon. Not going to name names, but it's good to see kind of a little bit of a backtracking on that approach where it's more of a measured. Let's actually
Let's
let this
see
game kind of breathe
approach.
and build on its own a bit and take it one logical step at a time. So as far as things like the franchising and all that goes, I think it's good to see a slower, more measured approach out of this so far from Valorant.
Yeah, and we knew that for a game, especially in the FPS genre, to be popular, it has to grow with the community, which is why we wanted to start with the Ignition series. We wanted the mm, the orgs and teams that people already know start throwing these tournaments, and we want this promise of Valorant esports to kind of grow with the fans together. And we're really excited at how well it's done. In fact, like I think some of the events in North America, the phase one in particular broke 180,000 viewers, which is completely unheard of for a community event.
It's great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's something I wanted to touch on briefly. Is kind of looking backwards at Ignition and then kind of using that as the model for what First Strike will be. Is there any magic that you guys were able to kind of bottle up and carry forward that you took as like, oh, we can do this again. Let's just do it, with our horsepower. And if there is anything specific that you took away, I would love to hear more about that.
I think the format was the one thing I touched on earlier that we definitely have taken away. The rivalries played a really big part, and I think that's something you're going to see us lean into a lot more. And as we build a narrative towards First Strike, going from qualifiers to First Strike, kind of leaning in on that and making sure that that narrative comes out. In Valorant, we have a lot of players with their own fan bases coming from other games, and that's something we want to lean into and lean into those personalities. We've seen a lot of our players stream before or after their tournaments and actually engage with their own fan bases, and we're really excited at essentially that micro communities that they bring with them as well.
And actually, whilst Cash was on that point, and how long is this actual? I thought it was less. How long have we been recording? 40 minutes. Oh, okay. Okay, I misread this timing a lot. What was I going to say? That's fine. I got as much time as I need for this. Yeah, I'm also planning on doing watch parties and stuff like that on Twitch and YouTube at some point. May end up streaming on this channel for the First Strike tournament. May end up restreaming it to Twitch as well. But yeah, that's just that. Just thought I'd
And
let you know.
is there any? I won't say a concern or fear that is some of the social aspects, some of the pushes, the rivalries that they won't get, maybe not get stale, but because we keep looking towards this global competition, how are you going to maintain the hype from an event to event? What's the spacing going to be like between these events?
That's a good question.
For the qualifiers, I think they'll be fairly regional and they'll be spread out between, and they all have their own timelines starting, I think, towards the end of October, mostly probably running in November. When it comes to First Strike, everything will be on one weekend, and we'll be spacing it out as much as possible so that fans at any time that we can tune in and tune into some and watch one regional at least, or tune into one region's event, ensuring that there aren't too many happening at the same time as well.
Will there be multiple regional events happening on the same day?
Yeah, every region's First Strike finals would be between December 3rd and December 6th.
Okay,
And that's when you
Interesting.
said that the schedules will be staggered, right? Because majors are going to have their blocks, and then the minors might overlap. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, minors just have more flexibility, I would say, in what time zone they want to be in, or like what time is best for them.
Got it. So you're
Okay.
actively trying to ruin my sleep schedule. Fantastic.
This makes me cry.
2 in the morning. It's gonna be a good time. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of covered a lot of the meat and potatoes that I wanted to hit, because I know there's
Part of the reason why it makes me cry as such is just because I much prefer it when it's a lot nicer for me as someone who runs Valorant Hub to have content spread out over time, because otherwise you have 10 things happening in one day, trying to cover it all, burning yourself out on that day, and then 2 days later you have almost nothing to cover. But if you cover the stuff that was, done 3 days ago, 3 days later, it's no longer relevant news. So it's a,
we're talking about upcoming.
so the way the cookie crumbles.
Difficult to, especially if it's months away, to kind of get some of the details and stuff like that. So I guess one of my final questions is, when can we expect more information about First Strike?
I think from this point, the information is going to go region by region, focusing on that region's format. I don't know the answer to that because I do think they're staggering. So I don't know it won't be one date. There will be certainly all know more information, and I know each region is in a different process of essentially finding those third-party partners as well. I don't know the answer to that, but it should be in the coming weeks.
Got it.
So,
oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose it, Twitch. I'm gonna lose it. Like, I mean, to be fair, what, half an hour-ish of content, and maybe, I don't know, like maybe 6 ads in half an hour. I don't know, bro. I don't know how long this interview is though, because there's like a good hour-ish left off the broadcast, but I don't know how much of that hour is this interview as well. We will see. We will see.
in related questions that you probably aren't allowed to answer, but we're gonna ask you anyway because we've got you here. So we're gonna try to push you. Should we take First Strike as any indication that episode 1 may be coming to an end? Is this possibly going to be sort of the capstone to the episode 1 arc?
I hope so.
I think we've already announced probably like our general episode.
Yeah.
Act structure.
Excuse
I
me?
think we should see First Strike less of a capstone for episode 1 and more of a capstone for a 2020 competitive season.
Yeah.
And that'll be
Yeah.
most likely the last thing that happens in 2020.
We know that episode 1 finishes the end of this year anyway.
My
So
final
that's-
question. Oh, go. Sorry about that. I was just gonna say.
No, go ahead, Golden Boy. I'm excited at the prospect of there being seasons, and that's something we can talk about after. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're really gonna regret deferring the floor to me. So it's First Strike. So then, is the next event going to be Counter Strike?
It'll be Second Strike and then Third Strike, and it'll just be the thing going forward.
Third Strike,
And
then does that mean Ryu and Ken skins confirmed?
I was gonna say, then you
really
just
what
go to
I
number
wanna
4
know.
after that.
That I could get on board with. Third Strike is the best Street Fighter.
That's
Alpha,
really
Alpha
all I'm
2.
asking for. I'm just here to lighten the mood and make everyone happy and because we
I
all
can
love
actually
this
take this one
game and
for
we
you, Casper,
really
if you
want
like.
this game to succeed.
Alex, can you just shut the up for a minute, please? That would be great.
Oh
Don't bring the
dear.
audio again. No.
I love this relationship, bro.
I'll let you answer that one, Casper. Can we expect Ken and Ryu skins in Valorant? That's an easy one for you, I can imagine.
No.
Oh,
They'd have to be. You'd have to
I
be
guess
like the
so,
dragon
yeah.
skin, but
Ooh.
it would be Ken or Ryu, you know?
Yeah, Hadouken. All right, Casper. So I
Joking
suppose
out of
maybe we this was like one of those interviews where maybe we skirted a topic that there was something that we wanted us to ask about, or if there's anything else that maybe that we haven't touched on just due to time or circumstance. Is there any other Easter eggs you can drop with us here today? Any secrets you were willing to share that may have been thrown out with the rest of your whiteboard?
Um, I think the one thing I'll say is there's some unique surprises that we're gonna have for First Strike. So I can't talk about them explicitly, but we're excited to see the community's reaction to them. I think it'll be a little tease of what the future of Valorant esports can look like.
That excites
An
me.
announcement of
Okay,
an
like what?
announcement.
All right, all right. Your
Yeah,
esports
what else?
baby doing it. All scoots. Announcement of an announcement. Here we go. We're
Yeah.
moving. We're esports now, baby. That's it.
Okay.
I would love to hear a little bit more about the if we're looking at First Strike as the capstone to the 2020 season. And I know 2021 does seem far away, but for how rapidly this year has been progressing, at
It's
least for
not far
Valorant,
away.
is there immediate plans for a follow-up?
We're 2 months away. Like,
Yes, you'll definitely hear about that separately. I can't talk to it too much, but I think our goal is always to ensure that fans know what's next.
I'm sorry, I was talking
So
over
you'll
what they were
definitely hear
saying.
from us about 2021.
Or if there's anything else that maybe secrets you were willing to share?
One thing I'll say is there's some unique surprises.
Esports
what else?
baby doing it. All
That's my
scoots.
bad.
Announcement of an announcement. Here we
I
go.
wanted to hear what they
We're
were saying
moving. We're
though,
esports
so
now, baby. That's it.
I would love to hear a little bit more about the if we're looking at First Strike as the capstone to the 2020 season. And I know 2021 does seem far away, but for how rapidly this year has been progressing, at least for Valorant, is there immediate plans for a follow-up?
Yes, you'll definitely hear about that separately. I can't talk to it too much, but I think our goal is always to ensure that fans know what's next. So you'll definitely hear
Perfect.
from us about 2021. And hopefully
Last
that can
call
be
for
on
questions,
again.
gentlemen. If you have anything more for Kazra, oh, sorry, it's the VMix delay again. If you could repeat that last part for me, Kazra.
Oh, I was just gonna say hopefully I can be on the show again when I can talk more about 2021 as well.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome. You can come on as my. We're actually looking for
Yeah.
a third regular. So I mean, if you want to fill your Tuesdays, we've got lots of space for you, my friend.
My last question is going to be more on the on the fun side, because why not? We've been watching so many great events, and there've been a lot of great teams. So this is more of a softball. What's your favorite team? Who have you been enjoying? Are you even allowed to have a favorite team? I don't know why I'm asking this question, but I'm sure it makes sense in my mind. So your thoughts? Favorite team? Go. Or favorite region? Why is it NA?
I don't think I can talk about a favorite team. I think I'm just excited. I'm really excited for the first NAEU match. I'm really excited for that first. Probably going to be G2 Sentinels or probably
Can we
G2
kick
Sentinels.
Anton and Joker out of the VMix chat so we can all have a private conversation really quick? I just want to make sure that get the PR people out of here, man. No, so I'll rephrase Golden Boy's question for him. What was your favorite event to watch? Can you answer
Oh,
that?
there you go.
that's a good question.
Sure. I'll name two because I think I had two I really liked. One of them was the Blast one. I really thought the production value of that was really, really good. It pushed
Yeah.
the bar even higher to the point that we're like, okay, we got to top that one, and that really, really did well. I like the phase one. I think the phase one also had a lot of hype and a lot of team fandom coming in. I really like Myth's co-stream with his cheerleading. That was a really fun one as well, and I'm excited for this weekend. Actually, there is going to be one in SEA that brings together Korea, Japan, and some other countries in that region as well as one of the first international events as well.
I think that's happening
Just
as
starting to get a better idea of who some of the best teams are in Asia. And not
yeah, that's
just in the
happening
smaller
right. No,
regions.
it's a different one actually. There's one Ignition series going on right now as
Eric, any last questions?
recording.
No, thanks for fielding my my tougher esports industry related questions. It's I think it's important that developers and the scene have a really strong partnership that one can benefit the other and vice versa, and it's important to kind of keep the dialogue going and possibly have some tough conversations, but ultimately focus on whatever drives this industry forward. So thanks for fielding those.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
And just to kind of put a cap on the whole thing, first of all, thank you for spending some of your valuable time with us here. And from the very beginning broadcast of the very first Ignition Series event that I was happy to take part in, Valorant has absolutely hooked me just as a fan. So to be able to have that to look forward to in these uncertain times is always very, very welcome. So I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to yourself for coming on again. Everybody on the esports team, all the way up to the very top with Waylon. And for everyone that's been involved, we cannot wait to see what First Strike brings. And if this is the end of season 1, I can't wait to see what season 2 looks like as well. Kazra, I look forward to having you on again in the future, and thanks so much.
What happens then for the rest of this podcast? Do they just
see you next time?
Talk like a regular podcast?
Really quick, going to throw to commercial. When we come back,
Okay, so I think the rest of this is a podcast.
Like I'm
gonna listen to this, not whilst I'm recording. I'm just gonna listen to this whilst I'm editing or something. But I wanted to get the Castro Fruity lead. I don't know his exact title, even though it was up for a while. Something like lead esports strategist or something. Is that correct? Esports strategy lead. There we go. Pretty much the same thing. Really good to see what they're talking about. I'm really glad that he went on to this Valoranting podcast to speak with 3 people who are very close with everything that's going on in esports, and not only very close, but I would also say very connected between the viewers like us, the consumers and stuff, and of course the first parties like Riot Games, Castro Fruity. I'm going to now make a video on Valorant Hub going over the most important parts of this, condensing it down a little bit to what I think the masses would want to hear and stuff like that. So if you enjoyed this is what I do on the second channel. I look through everything that is being said and done in the industry, my first impressions, my first analysis, etc., and then straight afterwards I then make a video more polished and information rich and whatever else you want to call it on Valorant Hub. So if you enjoyed this, I'd like it's always very much appreciated. If you want to stay up to date with everything that I post on this channel every single day, hit that subscribe button, keep notifications on. I'll see you in the next Valorant video. Not in the next Valorant video, it might not be Valorant, but I'll see you in the next video.
Such a